This is Creative Banter. If you like the sound of a tractor mowing the lawn in the background, you're going to love this episode. But even if you're not a fan of background noise, there's still plenty to enjoy, like Ben's 73-mile cycling to Torrey Pines and Cody's recent success with a print sale. There's also discussion around writing more deep and personal stories, and a shared obsession with constant movement. Let's dive right into this, shall we?
Earlier this week, so we were recording this on a Thursday, and on Tuesday, I decided to go for a bit more of an ambitious ride that I have in the past. There's this place along the coast here in San Diego called Torrey Pines, and it's kind of like a nature reserve right on the coast, and it's up on this bluff, but the road that goes down to the beach there is really popular for cyclists, and it's an area that my dad used to ride, so I was curious to see about going from my house all the way to Torrey Pines and back. And it ended up being a little over 73 miles, which was a bit. And that thoroughly wiped me out that day. And then probably about a half of the day, following that. So it was definitely pushing my limits. But it might sound like that's, a kind of an insane length of a ride, but that's fairly typical for actually a lot of cyclists.
How long did that take you?
It was just under 5 hours of moving time. But I took some breaks, a little bit of a break going there, and then a couple of breaks on the way back. And, since here in San Diego, as you get further away from the coast, you get higher up in elevation. And so when you ride down the coast and then you ride back, you're riding uphill. And it's not just a gradual uphill. It's you kind of go up to the top of a mesa, then you go up to the top of another mesa. So there's some big climbs, but it was weird because my legs did not get tired. My legs never got sore or anything because they're made for it. But it's just that stress on the body it's like if you go on a really long, strenuous hike where the body is just kind of like, whoa, what is this? I was not anticipating this. But it was a good ride, and so it was kind of fun to do that. And then also, I'm going to be bringing my road bike to Zion on my fall trip this year.
Yes, I saw that on your story that you posted.
Yeah,
a little tease there.
Yeah, and so I'm finding a way to, because my bike rack on the back of my 4Runner just carries one bike, and I'm going to bring two bikes. And so the old sort of beater bike, I guess you would say, that's the one I'll use with a little trailer on the back when I'm biking into the main canyon with my camera gear. But then if I'm just going to go biking for fun, I'll hop on the road bike and take that into the canyon. And, I can't bring anything with me in terms of camera stuff with that bike just because it's, I don't want to cover up the spandex with any sort of backpack or anything like that. So, wouldn't be so comfortable.
God forbid. I mean,
no,
goodness, no, don't.
Everything on display, and yeah, but that'll be fun. That one will stay inside my car, so I got a case I can put it in. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fall adventures. It's feeling more like fall here. So what about you? What have you been up to? What do you have coming up? How's the job hunt and everything else going on?
The job hunt is despicable.
Yeah, really? Oh man.
I mean, I just applied to 2 or 3 other photography focused positions and denied for every one of them. I'm like,
that's crazy.
Whatever. I don't get it, dude. It's
yeah.
I
mean, you hear about so many companies that are, practically begging for people to work, but then to have such a hard time, finding a job, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially after, going through everything in terms of, being in the all the education and everything going into it and all the experience you have with very things. And has it been the same thing where being told you're overqualified, or are they even saying anything at all?
Most of the time, they're not saying anything at all. I mean, The one thing that I read, most of the places that I'm applying through Indeed. And I was reading something, and again, don't know the validity of this, but nonetheless, that a lot of these places are using like AI systems to check resumes. And if you don't have certain keywords plugged in and like descriptions and all that, if you're not tailoring your resume to each individual job that you're applying for, it'll be automatically denied for a lot of these places.
Huh.
So I'm like, oh, so you just are making the job hunt 3,000 times more difficult for me. Even though I'm still applying to these photography positions, my resume has some of my photography stuff with it and still nothing. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Is it the sort of thing where you get the rejection notice fairly quickly, or does it come after several days? What kind of time frame is it?
Most of the time it's like a day or it depends. It's all over the place, really. The majority, I would say, are after a couple days maybe. So that's why I'm kind of thinking it's not necessarily the AI unless that's on a delay to make it seem like someone actually.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know. Not the best situation in terms of job hunt. Nothing good to say about that.
Yeah.
And then of course, so yesterday in order to post that spider photograph for the last week's episode onto the Discord, I had to go and plug in my the Sony into the computer or the SD card into the computer and then download and everything. And when I did that, I took the SD card out, obviously. And after I got everything finished, I went to put the SD card back in and it didn't lock into place. And the A7R2 only has one SD card slot.
Yeah.
So I tried every SD card that I have, and I was texting Matt Payne, who I bought the camera from. And I'm like, have you ever experienced this before? That it just like wouldn't lock into place? Like it just
keeps shooting back out again kind of a thing?
Yeah, like it's just like bouncy, I guess is the best way to say it.
Huh.
And he was like, maybe not really though. Like, so we were texting back and forth and everything. And I looked up a couple of different videos and some were saying that cheaper SD cards may like break certain like the corners that protect the connecting points, the connection pins.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that plastic will break off and get caught in the bottom and then it won't allow the SD card to fully slot in and then lock. So looked in there with a flashlight and everything, sprayed it out a little bit with pressurized air and with a rubber rocket blower.
Air blower thing, yeah.
Yeah. And nothing fell out, couldn't see anything. The SD card wasn't broken, so I'm like, okay, so this is nice. I have to send it in for repair.
Oh, that's not great.
No. So I'm going to be shipping that off tomorrow to see about getting it repaired. I mean, Matt was nice enough that he's like, let me know what it is, what it ends up being in terms of cost, and he's going to split the cost with me because he feels bad, obviously. I've had this camera for about a month, and now it's like unusable. I'm like, okay. So the joys of digital.
Because I think on those ones, I mean, I got like an SD card in front of me right now. I think there's like a little thing that's supposed to like kind of grab it on the side of the card and kind of like lock it in place. Almost as though like whatever mechanism inside the camera that's supposed to grab that, either something's worn out or, you know, it's not spring loaded as much as it should be. Like of all the time I worked at the camera store, and it was a very long time, that's never an issue that I saw. So it's not as though that's like a common thing, though perhaps it's just something that happens on particular cameras. But yeah, that's kind of a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm glad that I have the Ricoh still. So if I do go out for a hike, I can still photograph with that. I'm very comfortable with that camera at this point. It's still like, I just get this macro lens and then this thing hits me. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I just have bad luck. So
I mean, since everything else has been going so great lately,
yeah, exactly.
Just pile on, you know.
My uncle always used to say that if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. And I got that treat from him. That passed right through for the genetic gene pool.
Yeah. So if anyone has been on the fence about, you know, maybe joining the Patreon, maybe getting some advanced, sneak peeks at some of the episodes and stuff like that, you know, I think that could be a beneficial thing with everything going on in Cody's life right now.
Speaking on Patreon there, they actually just released, and I don't know if this was a feature that was like available and I just didn't really hadn't pushed it as much or whatever, or it could be something newer, that you can make a Patreon, like a shop on your Patreon.
I think I saw an email about that. I didn't look at it yet, but it's like commerce or something like that.
Yeah, I looked at it real quickly, but apparently you can have it open to anyone. You can essentially treat it as your own online store through Patreon. Again, don't know all of like the nitty gritty details. Don't know what, if anything, they take from each sale and that kind of deal.
Imagine there'd have to be some take of it, but who knows? And
I was kind of thinking, because we've talked in the past, at least through email and everything, about doing stickers or selling some kind of like product for that acts as like marketing, but also just a cool little thing to have if you like the show.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to start looking more into those kind of options that we may have now that they have this store, and see what we can all do in terms of, if you like the show and want to support us in another way, even without joining the Patreon, then here you go. And if you do join the Patreon, maybe some like limited edition stickers, or I don't know, something stupid like that, but that could just be cool that people like. I mean, I like stickers.
I could take like some of those 35 millimeter film canisters. I still have some of those around, and just put like a lot of cat hair in them. And then that could be, I mean, that's pretty expensive.
That's true.
I think that could be a giveaway, or maybe just like pictures of me in spandex.
That might, you know what? Effect. Not necessarily the opposite effect, but we should do it where if you don't join, you get sent pictures of Ben in spandex.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. Like you have to buy a yearly subscription to not get it. That's a good idea. I like that. We'll have to talk more about that.
Yeah.
And on the other side of things, too, if you are enjoying the show and you do want to help support us in some way outside of the financial spectrum, go on to like Spotify or to Apple podcasts or whatever it is, wherever you listen, and leave a review. Hopefully a good one, but I mean, I guess anything counts.
Yeah.
Just to kind of help push us out a little bit more, be beneficial and appreciate it.
Definitely.
So, outside of that stuff, let's see. I made a print sale the other day.
Oh, cool.
So I know we were talking on Instagram a little bit about pricing and all of that, and one of our listeners decided to help support me a little bit and bought a 8x10 print. So it's the first time that I've sold a print in years.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was the image?
Nature's Triquetra. It's the hostas in a kind of like triangular pattern. So
checking it out right now. Of course, I'm trying to do this on my phone, and it's a little bit slow at the moment.
It's a bunch of hostas with dew on them, more of like a silvery toned image.
Okay, yeah. That's really cool. Really cool shapes, and that's really nice.
Yeah, so I've got to get that printed, make sure that I can have everything prepared for that one, and then ship it off and see how everything goes.
That's cool, because that one has a lot of nice contrast to it, a lot of the kind of mid-tone, silvery tones, lots of movement, just kind of like, it's really a fun one to look at, just because as you look at it, your eye just kind of gets bounced around in all sorts of different areas.
Yeah, so.
Where was that one taken?
Somewhere in Pennsylvania, in the woods. I don't remember exactly what park it was.
But more close to home as opposed to like on a longer trip.
Yep. Yeah, maybe like an hour, 2 hours away from the house kind of deal, as most of my photography is. So, But so that was cool to see. That was a benefit of having Instagram, I guess, because they had messaged me through Instagram. I saw like one of the requests or whatever, and they're like, hey, I want to buy a print. I'm like, all right, say no more.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, it does show that, social media can certainly have a very beneficial impact when it comes to the sense of community, when it comes to putting yourself out there. And obviously, because of the podcast here and people hearing our conversations, then I think having your website is great, but, the more ways of getting your stuff out there, the more chance of, people getting their eyes on the work, and then also it just whatever is most convenient for people. And so that's really cool. I'm glad that has worked out, and especially at a pretty good time, all things considered.
I know the one thing that I want to do is obviously start posting to Instagram and kind of seeing where that takes it. Probably end up drafting up a post for maybe tomorrow. So week prior to when everybody's hearing this, 2 weeks prior, whatever. If I post it on Instagram, then it's on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I already told Andrew Baruffi, because we've been chatting back and forth a bit, and I'm like, yeah, I'm stealing your whole caption idea of things. I want to actually have something to talk about when you comment, or if you comment on the post, something more to the image than just the image itself and some stupid little caption of whatever, one sentence kind of thing. I want there to be a little bit of meat to the image as well, to the post, because at least if for no other reason, then it's just going to make me feel better about posting, I guess. So
yeah, and it also allows for a greater connection to the work. As people are just, scrolling through stuff on social media, if there's just an image posted with very limited caption, at some point I don't even bother to read the caption. But if there's a much more, if there's a more significant caption there, I know immediately that there's going to be more to that image than meets the eye. So I enjoy having that perspective of knowing more of what was going through the artist's mind, as well as, the story behind it. And I think it allows you to see the image in a different light. And I think anything that slows you down in social media, like a speed bump in terms of the larger caption, there'll be some people that just flip right past. But I think for those that are more appreciative of the work, I think they would definitely enjoy having that greater sense of perspective.
Yeah. And it also just helps me to write more personally, I think, which is something that I really want to start doing more of. Just telling more of, or imbuing more of myself into my writings and to my photographs, and openly sharing with whoever ends up seeing them. Because I know we've gotten some comments recently through the Landscape Photographers Worldwide Discord about how especially my openness with mental health and with all that kind of thing has been helping people and that kind of deal. And so Nature Vision magazine, the second issue is going to be released by the time that this is released. It releases on the 26th or 27th. I forget which date we chose, but in it I have my essay, and I talk a lot about, very specifically, my what I was going through when I was in Colorado, and more of the mental state and the lack of finding that kind of connection. And I was talking about the fact that I was dealing with a lot of thoughts of just of death in general, and a very dark cloud over hanging over everything with my photography, with the whole trip. And still had a great time, but it was still one of those things of I felt the need to share some of that. And I know that both our copy editor and David were yeah, this is raw, it's emotional in a sense. And they were both really happy with having me share it, kind of deal.
Yeah, that's good.
And I just want to try and do more of that, because I think it's more of those conversations aren't had nearly as much as they should be. And I know that a lot of people, or there's still people out there who will be oh, well, you're just sharing these thoughts and this stuff for attention, you should keep it to yourself and that kind of deal. But the reality of it is that the more that we keep it to ourselves, the worse it gets. And so by sharing and having an open conversation and being as open as we can when it comes to these kind of things, I think it's only going to benefit people to realize that you're not alone, and you can speak out about this and tell your story. And so I think, especially with the Substack, when I start posting to that, and with all my essays in general, And especially then again with Instagram and sharing that kind of stuff, just trying to be an open book when it comes to that.
Yeah. And I think we've turned a corner a bit when it comes to that kind of thing where, in the past, people may have had perhaps a bit of a negative reaction in a way to that. But I think we've really come around to the point where people really appreciate the openness on things like that. And I think perhaps it's even a post-pandemic kind of thing where, obviously that wasn't the best of times. But just, I think people are more embracing that openness now, and in a way that really wasn't as much in the past. And I think it's something that adds a lot of meaning as opposed to just the artificial. It's almost in response to the whole influencer sort of times when people would post only their best, post stuff that makes them look as like they're living some glorious lifestyle where everything's perfect. They're sleeping in their van down by the river. They have everything's picturesque. Everything's perfect. Yeah. Everything is, I think we've turned a corner on that sort of stuff where people look at that. They know that that's fantasy. They know that that's not real. They know that that's not how that person's actually feeling when they're, out in the field or out on the trips. And so, that suddenly that whole lifestyle seems so it feels very disingenuous compared to the realities of things. So I think that it's fantastic that you're putting that out there. You're being very open with people. And I think that's going to add even more depth to your work. And I can see how, just like how Andrew has shared with the captions with his images, and I always really look forward to reading those. It just adds so much more depth to the images. And so I think Instagram, with its very generous length for the captions, I think that'll be good. It's almost like, it's kind of like writing an article in a way, but just very short, very to the point, very concentrated, and then, sharing the image at the same time. So I can see how that would be a very beneficial way of you using Instagram for sharing your work.
Yeah. The other side to that too, of more of like a technical benefit is, even though I'm sure you can write a ton on an Instagram caption before it kicks you off into like a comment or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what the word count is for that, but
it's pretty long. Yeah.
I think even practicing writing succinctly is a huge thing too. And like being able to express yourself in a couple hundred words rather than relying on a whole article will only help me to grow stronger as a writer as well. And really be able to express myself even further with longer articles on Substack or on my website for essays or wherever else. So
yeah, that's good. I also I was just looking at your profile on Instagram, and I noticed that you made the same decision that I have. Mine was fairly recent, where you have artist selected, and for the longest time mine was set to photographer, but I don't know, I always felt a little weird about that, almost like it was cheapening things a little bit, because it kind of makes it more about like the camera and the gear as opposed to like the thought behind it. And I saw when I was browsing through on Instagram a little while ago, I saw Michael Strickland, who does large format. We've talked about him in the past, and does these beautiful platinum prints and color carbon prints and all this sort of stuff. And I saw that he had artists listed, and I'm like, well, I should have artists listed for mine, because it feels so much more encompassing than just saying photographer, like, oh, I click a button, So I made the change on mine a little while back to artist, and it's good to see that you have that set as well.
Yeah, I think with my old profile, I had artists selected as well. But really, I consciously chose it this time just because at this point in my career, so to speak, I'm more than just a photographer. It's not even like the whole argument of photographer versus artist. It's more of, I'm doing photography, I'm writing.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to, in a way, educate about like the environment and like conservation and the natural world around us and the woodlands, that kind of thing. So it's, like you said, more all-encompassing of a title than what writer or photographer would end up being on there. I mean, not at the end of the day, not like it really matters. I mean, I'm sure that even being a business profile hurts me in some ways as well. So, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. It's a choice that even before we started doing this podcast, I think I would have hesitated to put down artist, just because it almost seems like there's some sort of like pretentiousness behind it. But I think the more we've had these conversations, the more we've talked about stuff, it just seems like it's the more, like you said, all-encompassing, more logical choice, because there's more depth to it than simply just taking pictures. So it just kind of shows an evolution of thought through the years.
Not a good look if we're running out of things to talk about already.
Do you have any topics?
Let me see.
I wrote down AI, but I don't know about that.
What about AI?
I don't know. I just wrote it down. I wrote it down as we were talking. We were talking about stuff earlier.
Yeah, I don't have anything written down.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to keep this in and just fill some time. So let's see how boring we can get.
Yes. So let's do another 15 minutes of silence.
Yeah.
So I think I got something here. So in about I don't know, a little over a week or so, I'm going to be returning to the Eastern Sierra on a camping trip. This time, last year when I went there, it was a few days. I didn't bring my large format camera. This year, I'm going to head there with my wife, just kind of show her the area and show her some of the pretty fall color there and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. And they'll just mostly be kind of a fun trip. But really, I'm starting to think more about my trip to Zion in the fall. And it's weird because at this point, I have pretty much all the work I need for the year. I've already printed 7 of the images that are going to be in this year's print portfolio. And even if I gather no work whatsoever from Zion in the fall, which would be tough to do because it's such a beautiful area. I know I'm going to have some good opportunities there. But even if I gather no work from the fall trip, I have enough work from my winter and spring trips to give me the 3 more images I need for the portfolios. So I'm really going into the fall trip with very little in the way of, expectations and everything along those lines. But at the same time, there's like this baseline anxiety leading into the trip, which is kind of, I've been trying to sort that out. I've been trying to figure out what that is, because the fall trips are usually the ones that it's the most relaxing. It's the most convenient. It's not a backpacking trip. I'm not, far away from civilization. I go back to the campground each night. And I know that I'll fall into the swing of things, but it's almost as though just like that baseline anxiety is just because this is something we've talked about in the past a little bit, but things are just moving so fast now where it just seemed like I was on a spring trip and all of a sudden there's like this fall trip, heading towards me at lightning speed. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects things this year. One of the things I am looking forward to is, as I talked about at the beginning of the episode, is bringing the road bike so that I can see Zion from a different perspective and give myself a little bit of a mental break. Because I think just when going on the trips, when the whole focus is photography and trying to find the next subject and this and that, it does get to be a little bit monotonous after a while, even to a place that I really love. But I'm looking forward to the change that bringing the bike brings, because I think it does put me in sort of a different kind of headspace. And who knows, maybe it'll allow me to see things from a different perspective. So I think that'll be kind of fun, but it's been weird. It's something about the fall coming up. It's just, I'm loving it. I already have some neighbors putting up Halloween decorations, but things are just moving way too fast.
That monotony of being in the field especially is something that I started watching Morton Helmer's videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And
he does the wildlife stuff, right?
Yeah, real like long form videos on wildlife photography and that kind of thing, which is totally different than what a lot of people are doing on YouTube, where it's like 10 minutes here and 5 minutes here and 15 maybe. Most of his are like 30 plus minute videos. Mm-hmm. So you actually have to sit down and like, I'm actually going to listen to this and watch this for a half hour, dedicate that time to it. But in the video that I was watching today of his, he was going on, it was with the new Nikon camera, the ZF camera.
The retro looking one?
Yeah, retro film looking one that they released. He was testing that out for some video and photography, and he had gone camping with one of his friends. And though he was doing a lot of photography with it, at least that he showed, he was also out fly fishing, and he was like foraging and just doing these different activities in the woods outside of what a normal photographer would do, or at least that you would think they would do.
Yeah.
And it just gave rise to the thought of these camping trips being more than just about photography, and how enjoyable it could be to implement different activities into your camping trips, like for you with the bike or the road bike and taking that out. And for me, I don't know, but something.
Yeah, just find some way of doing that.
Yeah, just not having it be all about photography all the time, because I think that can ultimately lead to quicker burnout. And I also find that like even with my walks in the woods that I do, just if I don't bring the camera or I never take the camera out, I'm still coming away with something for my writing or just something to think about in the future and implement later on if I decide to implement it into anything. Just enjoying nature in a state of being rather than doing, and a kind of mix of that. So,
and I think another thing too that I've tried to do in the past, and I really enjoy when I do it, but it's really hard to force myself to do this, but to set aside time where I'll set like an alarm basically. I'll go somewhere kind of off away from people, and I'll just sit down for like a half hour, and I'll just sit there, just look at things, observe things. And I love doing that, but it's so hard to force myself to do that because I just want to get up and start walking around again. I think there's something like self-soothing about just, walking around and scrambling around and looking for things that the moment I sit down, my legs want to keep moving. It's weird because like when I got back from that long bike ride a couple days ago, I was just worn out. I'm like, I just need to sit down on the couch, just watch some TV, just relax. And I got like 5 minutes into like an old episode of Cheers. And I'm like, I got to get up. I got to move around. I got to do this. Like my legs just would not quit. And so it's just something where I need to really force myself just to slow down. And the camera makes me do that. And I think that's one of the reasons I love large format. Because it forces me to slow down. Video also forces me to slow down. But like when I went on the trip last fall to the Eastern Sierra where I didn't bring my camera, I was just hiking the entire time. And I pretty quickly wore myself out also because some of those hikes had some pretty big elevation changes. But I think that'll be one of my goals leading into Zion this year is just to force myself to sit down longer and just to enjoy things, because otherwise just the trip goes by way too fast. And it's just nice to take in everything, utilize the senses a little bit more. So I think that's going to be a goal for me this year in Zion.
I guess that's one of the ways that it's weird for me because of like with my depression, I deal with ADHD to at least a degree, as I think we've talked about before. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm dealing with depression. And having that kind of mix is really weird because depression wants you to just slow down and not do anything because you don't have energy or motivation. ADHD, your brain is constantly going at 100%. You want to do everything at once.
But you can't.
Yeah.
They're like fighting each other, right?
Exactly. So like I'll find that I'm sitting at, I'll be sitting watching one of Morton's videos on YouTube. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to watch this video. And I'm also going to play my game on my phone. but I really don't have motivation to do anything at all. So I'm wasting time by doing these things when I could be writing or could be doing whatever else. So it's like, it's a weird state of constantly moving. It's like walking on a treadmill. You're constantly moving, but you're not getting anywhere.
Huh.
And yeah, so, I mean, at least you don't have to deal with that, I guess. I guess.
No, not it. I just have the one force tugging at me. So how does that work out for your writing? Is there anything in particular you found that allows you to concentrate and to stay focused while also maintaining that level of motivation? Because I know for me, writing is difficult because I just get lost in things. I have a hard time articulating things that, the concepts I want to say. So what have you found works for you for that?
Most recently, when I wrote 2 articles recently, the one for Nature Vision magazine, and then one that's going to be about companionship and going to go on to the Substack, I think, unless I branch that out a little bit more and make it longer for my website. When I was writing that, I wrote it pen and paper, and I wrote them kind of in small chunks, but all within like an afternoon, getting that like first draft going. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped to at least a degree, where I was like, all right, going to write until I start to really feel the distractions coming on, and then allow myself that distraction and then go back to it. Because otherwise my dad's mowing the lawn now. So anyway, he always picks the worst times, but yeah, see, distractions. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. I'll get into this space, like if I'm just forcing myself to stare at a white screen, that my mind is all over the place, but not where I want it to be. So yeah, I don't know exactly what is going to help me to focus myself, but also to push through that motivation. Like even when I'm journaling at night, or whenever I decide to, I'll go through and I'll be writing about something and I'll just lose motivation to continue writing. So it becomes like, I want to keep writing about this. I have more to say about this, but I don't feel like writing anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Earlier today, I was working on the layout for the zine. I was tweaking some things and I was reading up on how I should be speccing the file for everything. And then meanwhile, my dog Oliver was in the backyard and he was barking at a rat. And then, I'm hearing that the mailman is showing up and then he's barking at that. And then cars are driving by and this and that. And I could not concentrate on I was just trying to read these specs, and I'm looking at this list. I'm like, I can't do this right now. I can't read all this. And I looked over on this kind of bookshelf there, and I have some headphones that are over there. And they have like the noise canceling. And it's crazy because I put those on, and all of a sudden, when I kind of quiet out that noise, all of a sudden I just feel this like sense of calm. And all of a sudden I have so much more focus just by getting rid of those various sounds. And so I find that if I'm ever having a hard time trying to be more articulate on whatever it is I'm writing about, or just trying to understand something, the moment I throw those in, all of a sudden, like my body like calms down. Something about just, blocking out the noise. And so, I was doing that earlier today, and that was beneficial. All of a sudden I'm looking at this list. I'm like, okay, I can do this now. This is easier. This is something I can tackle. So that's one little tool that I have in my toolkit. I found that those to be beneficial for those times when I'm just trying to concentrate on something.
Yeah, my girlfriend tells me, well, especially because like I don't always know what I plan on doing the next day or that day in general, especially now that I'm done working on the magazine. And she's like, well, make a to-do list. I'm like, I do. She's like, well, do you get the stuff done? I'm like, sometimes.
Yes.
And I'm like, I have written down 4 or 5 different things that I wanted to get done today, and I'll be crossing off one of them because I decided instead to clean my room.
Yeah.
Because I like needed to get moving, but I've tried the whole like headphones to kind of block out outside noise, and it works to a degree if I'm listening to like like a jazz or non-vocal jazz or like lo-fi music or something. I don't know. It's the motivation aspect that really kills everything at that point then too. Because like I could block out the distractions, or at least the auditory distractions, and everything else is like still grabbing for attention.
Now, what if you only had like 1 or 2 items on the list for the day? Is that something where you see it, there's like 2 things, I can do this? Do you think it's like the number of things on the list, having a smaller number would help out at all?
If it helps, it'll also put me into a place or into a state of mind where I'm like, okay, I've done 2 things today. That's it. And I'll get into that state of mind of like, I haven't done enough today. And so that kind of like then beats down into the depression aspect of everything. Will be like, oh, you haven't done enough today. So, and then it goes into like this whole tornado of negative thinking for things. So it's a really weird mix to be doing. But I know that I need to start getting work done towards my photography and towards the business side of things or whatever. I know that I need to get my website. There are a couple things on my website that I want to fix up and start writing more so I can start publishing stuff and maybe make a presentation or something. To start doing to camera clubs or something like that, just to bring some money in that I can at least pretend I know what I'm talking about for a couple minutes. So
like today I had, I guess, 3 things on the list. And so for me, if I can cross those things off the list, then I have a sense of accomplishment, even if it's just like a few things. Like I had to call a couple of years ago, we had the sewer pipes in the house replaced. And I noticed recently that there is an issue that they're going to have to come back and fix. And I've been putting off calling the company. I know they'll come out and they'll fix it, but I've just been putting it off. So I'm like, all right, today's the day I call them. And so I called them. Person is going to come tomorrow. They're going to come check it out. But that was one thing off the list. That's scratched off. Another was record the podcast today. We're making our way through it. And then also I was going to work on the zine. But it doesn't seem like it's a heck of a lot. It's one phone call, it's an hour or so for the recording, and then working on the zine for a little bit. Though it's weird because even though it's only a few things on the list, it doesn't seem like it's a lot that I've done today. But I think by the time all of this is done, I think there'll be some sense of accomplishment. Does giving yourself some sort of reward, does that factor in at all? Like if I get all this done, I can do this. Is that a motivating factor at all for you?
No, because I'm just likely to do that thing that I want to do anyway as a reward and totally ignore everything else.
Is that the ADHD kind of side of things of just going straight
I would
to the
imagine
reward?
so, yeah. Of just being trying to train myself like a dog where sit and you'll get a treat just doesn't work for me because I'm just going to go and just have the treat anyway and skip the whole sitting section. So yeah. For me, if I dangle some sort of reward, that actually does work. But yeah, if I just jumped right to the reward, then I can see how that would not be very beneficial. No. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. These are all things to talk about in therapy and try and fix. But that's going to be a multi-year project.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.